Alright, CTE students, I'm going to be doing a product demo. So first I'm going to open up my photo in Bridge, make a quick duplicate copy, and then open that copy into Photoshop. So when we're in Photoshop, first thing I recommend for a product photo is to center it. So when you crop your photo, what you want to think about is how I can get the object centered in the frame, and it has even spacing on each side. So kind of getting same ratio top to bottom and side to side. And so this looks pretty good. You can hit check or double click and hit return, and it'll crop your photo. So got it nice and centered. First thing what we want to do is clean up the product. So I always recommend working on a new layer. So layer, duplicate layer, hit OK. And again, if you want to go to your spot healing brush tool. So this one, I'm just going to press Command plus to zoom in. And as you can see, once we zoom in, we have quite a bit of dust on our product. So the more we take time cleaning our product before we shoot it, the easier this becomes. So I'm just going to grab some of the main spots. But again, we want to clean up the product best we can. There is a kind of a shortcut that works fairly well. So I'm just going to go layer, flatten image, and just combine those layers. I'm going to make a new duplicate layer. So layer, duplicate layer, hit OK. And I could apply a filter to this. So if I go to filter, noise, dust and scratches, you can apply a filter which will help to remove certain size objects. If I click off the preview, but you will notice it will mess with your sharpness on some of your edges. So what you want to do is just be careful about the radius and then the threshold, basically like how much you want it to take off. And then you will kind of want to fine tune this to where it starts taking up dust in a good way. So hit OK. Obviously I don't want this applied to the whole photo, so I'm going to add a little layer mask here, this little white flag. And then I'm just going to invert it. So if I press Command and I together, it'll invert it, Command plus I. So then if I get a paintbrush, I'm going to set it to 100%, just going to make it a bit smaller. I'm just going to kind of paint it over, set it to white. There we go. So white will show that filter and black won't. So I'm just going to hit kind of a couple spots where it's not going to blur out my whole image, but it will definitely get rid of some of these little dust particles that are happening. But it's not going to ruin like the focus and the sharpness on my texture and the side grip of my phone. So this is a good little way to do it. Just gonna hit a couple more spots. Alright, I would spend more time doing this, but I want to be kind of quick, so I'm just going to go layer, flatten image after that. Other options, again, if you want a shortcut to duplicate layer, just hold down Command and J, and that'll make a quick little layer, copy. So again, if you're having issues with the spot healing brush tool, you can use the standard healing brush tool, and then hold Alt or Option and click on a clean area, and then let go of Alt Option and just do a normal click, and it will start healing from a specific area that you tell it. So I'm just pressing Alt and Option on a clean area, letting go, and then just clicking, and then getting rid of some of these spots. If you want to be more precise, like sometimes it will guess wrong, and so you will be in situations where you want to be able to directly clone over, especially product photos. So I do recommend using the clone stamp tool. You can adjust the flow and the hardness of the edge depending on what you're cloning. And then you can use the little brackets next to the letter P to size it up and down, or you can adjust the size here as well. And so, thank you. Alright. So I'm just going to Alt click. One sec. Of course it has an issue now. There we go. Okay. It's going to Alt on a clean area and directly clone over. And so again, you can kind of work across a straight line and cleaning up those edges. So using those three tools is very good for cleaning up your product. So I'm just going to go layer, flatten image. So what we want to think about now is the background. So it would be nice to have the background solid white. And so if I go down to the bottom right, and click on this little half and half circle. I'm going to choose selective color. And then it might be defaulted to red, so you will need to go click on whites. And then it might be defaulted to relative or absolute. They're pretty similar, so if I go to the black channel, I can basically increase the whites if I drag it left, or darken the whites if I drag it right. So if I want to kind of make it solid white, I'm going to drag it to the left. And then you can turn the eye on and off, so you can kind of see what it's doing to the background. It's lightening it up. And so it might show up on your product, so it depends on how bright you want it on your product. And if you want to double the strength, all you need to do is duplicate that. So if I press Command and J, it'll copy it and basically double up the strength. And so you can see it is kind of showing up, but I actually do like how it looks on some of this. If you had a white product, what you might want to do is get a brush and set it to black, and then just kind of paint off the areas on the product that you don't want it to go. So if you want it just to go in the background, you could basically, if you had a white product, you could paint with black on the areas you didn't want it to go. And so now it looks pretty much solid white. So I'm just going to go layer, flatten image. So if you do want it to create like a fake reflection, what you can do, this is kind of a bonus, is if you go to layer and then duplicate layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to free transform it. So I'm going to go to edit and then free transform and get the boxes. So what I'm going to do is right click or control click in the middle of that. I'm going to flip it vertically like so. And so then I can like move this down. And if I want to kind of see through the layer, I'm just going to bring down the opacity. And so then I would just kind of think about, okay, where would it be kind of touching? You know, if it was reflecting, so kind of touching the shadow right there. And so then I'm just going to bring my opacity back. Obviously, you know, we don't want this area here. So, but I do want to try blending mode. Let's try multiply. And so multiply will basically show anything dark through the layer and then leave the white alone. So I got rid of that kind of hard edge. And then you can bring the opacity down because it would kind of be a fade, you know, it wouldn't be like a solid reflection on a white surface like that. So maybe she's going to kind of play with that. Something like that looks pretty good. And then, yeah, again, we're just going to go layer, flatten image. So now I got a little fake reflection. So the last thing I want to do with the product, you always want to make sure it's super sharp. So I'm just going to, again, go to layer, duplicate layer, hit OK, and I'm going to apply a very fine high pass filter. So go to filter, other high pass, and so I'm going to do a radius of 2.2 pixels. This will act as a sharpening filter. Obviously it looks kind of weird, so I'm just going to click on normal for my blending mode and go to overlay. So if I zoom in and I turn the eye off, this is before and after. I'll kind of zoom in so you can see better. It's before, after, so you can see how it's really sharpening it pretty well. So again, you can bring the opacity down if it's too strong, if it is pretty sharp. Or you can do a soft light, it'll be a little softer too. I'm just going to leave it at overlay so it's nice and sharp. And then again, flatten my layers. And then save it out. So if you want to adjust the blacks, you can, or the exposure, you can always do an adjustment layer with your levels. And so these are your highlights. I can whiten everything up even more. These are my midtones. And then this is my shadow. So I am going to emphasize the black here and just kind of bring up the mids a little bit. And that just kind of really defines the blacks a little better. So you might think about using the levels and just kind of adjusting your blacks, midtones, and highlights. And then flatten your layers when you're done and then save it out. So in a couple steps, right, we went through. So make sure you save as a JPEG. Make sure it's in the right folder because it's a copy. I'm just going to replace it. Make sure quality is good. I'm just going to go back to bridge, and here's my before and after. So I cropped it, did a lot of spot healing, cleaned up the product, did a fake reflection, adjust the background to make it more white, and then, you know, obviously played with my exposure, sharpened it, right, so it's nice and clean.